Okay, so now that we've looked at our two AP introductions, we're going to look at a different kind of introduction. We're going to look at our Fight Master introduction. So this journal is written by a lot of very intelligent, very academically minded people, not just men, but people who, let's just put it this way, they often look at endnotes and footnotes and citation, which we'll get to next week, as a form of hobby. It is their hobby. They're very intelligent, very academically minded, but they are often writing in first person because the journal isn't quite as formal as the essays we will be writing, especially in response to AP prompts. Alright, so this article is called I Do My Own Stunts, and it is by Jen Zuko Berg. It is a sign of attitude to claim to do one's own stunts. It's a mark of admiration and praise in the world of performance. Daniel Craig did all his own stunts in Casino Royale. Ooh! I even subscribed to this attitude until recently. Reviewing Vic Armstrong's autobiography, however, changed my mind on the whole do my own stunts concept. It was refreshing to hear Armstrong's stuntman-only perspective, as opposed to an actor-combatant like me and many of my students. And his view was much different than that of an actor's giant ego. He said that not only was performing one's own stunts an unnecessarily reckless and dangerous for an actor, but it takes work away from stunt professionals when an actor makes that choice. Alright, so this is... Well, firstly, the introduction. What a great introduction. It is a sign of attitude to claim to do one's own stunts. This is really true. Not a statement to argue with, but it really grabs your attention. We get on to clarifying the material because the writer, Jen, talks about the autobiography of this gentleman called Vic Armstrong. This is actually an article reviewing a book, Vic Armstrong's autobiography. So we clarify the material. We're going to talk about this autobiography by this really cool guy called Vic Armstrong. But then we get to the thesis, maybe not so much Jen's thesis, because she says, you know, I'm an actor combatant, but, oh, by the way, what is an actor combatant? An actor combatant is an actor who is also trained in fight skills, so could include different kinds of swords, could include cross staff, could include bow and arrow, but they go through a very specific training process. Alright, back to the introduction. Alright, he said, Vic Armstrong, that not only was performing one's own stunts unnecessarily reckless and dangerous for an actor, but it takes work away from stunt professionals when an actor makes that choice. So the thesis of the essay is when actors perform their own stunts, it is reckless and dangerous. And it also takes work away from people who are trained just to do fight choreography. Alright, great introduction. Great magazine. Definitely check it out. Alright, we're going to look at the Oxford Book of Essays for our last introduction. How's your tea doing? Mine's getting cold. Alright, so I want you to pick up your book. Go ahead and go to page 566. And I'm going to drink my tea. Alright, so this is by a gentleman called H.R. Trevor Roper. And he is writing about Thomas Hobbes. Alright, the introduction goes, when Thomas Hobbes, at the age of 84, looked back on his life, he found the key to it in fear. Fear and I were born twins, he wrote, for his birth had been premature, hastened by the panic of the Spanish Armada. Fear characterized his personal life, making him twice a fugitive. Fear is the basis of his political philosophy, as of all dictatorships. The very word tolls like a minute bell throughout the Leviathan. But philosophical systems do not spring from obsessions only. The mind of a revolutionary thinker is rarely simple, and the extraordinary boldness of Hobbes' intellectual method requires some less facile explanation. Wow. Okay. Opening statement. Here we go. When Thomas Hobbes, at the age of 84, looked back on his life, he found the key to it in fear. Wow. Whoa. All right, way to interest you. You know, so we have this person, this philosopher, Thomas Hobbes, old man, looking back on his life. The key to it was fear. You know, this is actually kind of mixing up our structure here. This is definitely not the formula I've given you, because we kind of get the clarification really early. It's like we have our grand master opening and the clarification, almost the thesis. We are almost that crystal clear at the very beginning of our introduction. Fear and I were born twins, he wrote, for his birth had been premature, hastened by the panic of the Spanish Armada. Fear characterized his personal life, making him twice a fugitive. Fear is the basis of his political philosophy, as of all dictatorships. The very word tolls like a minute bell throughout the Leviathan. But philosophical systems do not spring from obsessions only. The mind of a revolutionary thinker is rarely simple, and the extraordinary boldness of Hobbes' intellectual method requires some less facile explanation. Alright, so we have our map right after our, I kid you not, it's basically the thesis right at the top of the essay. But we have the map talking about his birth, personal life, political philosophy. Yeah, there's your 3 points. But philosophical systems do not spring from obsessions only. So this is kind of a shift in thinking. This is kind of the focus part of the introduction. The mind of a revolutionary thinker is rarely simple, and the extraordinary boldness of Hobbes' intellectual method requires some less facile explanation. So thus far in the introduction, we're talking a lot about fear. This writer, Trevor Roper, says fear was an incredibly important part of Hobbes' life and choices. But that's not the only thing that contributed to this man. Less facile, less easy explanation, less convenient explanation. So here the writer of the essay promises to show us a different side of Hobbes. Doesn't really tell us what it is, what that other side is, but he promises it's not just fear. And he promises it's not simple, it's going to be complex. Which is, honestly, that's humanity right there. Yep. Alright guys, it's been a pleasure. As you work on your introductions this week, remember to interest the reader. I have these wonderful little sayings and I have trouble remembering them in the moment. Okay, remember to interest the reader. Remember to clarify the material. Make sure to focus in on your thesis. And for the time being, I really do want you to kind of stick to the formula of Grand Master opening, introduce the material, thesis statement, map. But as soon as you guys get really strong and comfortable with that, we're just going to kind of throw a lot of that out the window and let you explore more. But to begin with, we're going to just stick with that formula. Alright guys, have a good night. Enjoy your tea. Bye-bye.